All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Aatika, for making all the time to be here on your very busy schedule. So, of course, we can do some introductions and then ask some questions on your report. So, of course, we've met. I'm Na, chair of the Scrutiny Panel, student trustee, engineering student. I'll hand over to Judith and then Sophie, and then Harry can also introduce herself as well.
Hi, I'm Judith. I'm a third year marketing management student, and I'm also the president of the Marketing Society.
Hi Atika, I'm Sophie. I'm a second year psychology student and the current Women's Liberation Chair at the Student Union.
Hi Atika, I'm Hari and I am a second year criminology student.
Lovely to meet all of you. I am Aatika and I am the Greenwich Students Union President. Hello.
Brilliant. I'm going to hand over to Judith to the first question because she's got to drop off the call quite soon. So, Judith, first question, go ahead.
Yes, my question for you is, can you share with us your plans for Black History Month and what you're planning to do on all of the 3 campuses and how your progress is going so far?
All right, thank you. So for Black History Month, I kicked off the month with an article that I felt was really important to do before anything else, which was Black History Month, why we do this. I understand a lot of people, don't really understand why there has to be an entire month carved out for Black History Month. So I put that up. The actual events, so speaker events and such, take place from the 2nd week of October, starting with a speaker, Paul Wilson, who is a retired Metropolitan Police officer who has recently written a book, Rocking the Boat, about race and policing. Obviously, I don't have time to name everybody that's going to be there, but I tried to cover the things that I felt were that I felt would be quite relevant for the times that we're living in. So I also have, the whole, movement regarding, BLM and defunding the police and conversations about race and policing are still very relevant. So obviously, I thought it would be of a lot of value to have him come on board. Also with COVID-19 sparking a lot of questions about Black people working in nursing and BAME people being most likely to be be harmed by COVID-19, whether it's economically or in terms of health or whatever. I'm having a group called the Young Historians Project come and give us a demo of a documentary that they've been working on called African Women in the NHS. But the thing that I'm most excited about for Black History Month is a display series called Know Your Black Britain, which has, I guess, little tidbits of history and current conversations that are very relevant to Black Britain. They're sort of like visually striking images. You can scan the QR code and find out more. And this will be a traveling display. So it would be a week in Greenwich, a week in Medway, and a week in Avery Hill. As for the speakers, I've made certain that all of them are going to be recorded. So we do have some speakers that will be speaking in person, but so that people can access it in Medway and Avery Hill as well. It's going to be recorded. We also have, although this is, we're still not quite sure, if this is going to go through, but one thing we are organizing is a traveling food truck, Afro-Caribbean cuisine, and having this food truck be available in all 3 campuses. So yeah, that's what's going on.
I love how passionate you are about all of it. I really like the ideas. Do you have anything where you can basically bring all 3 campuses together? Because you just said that you have different things going on or moving through the campuses, but is there anything you want to do to bring the 3 communities together?
Yeah, so I feel like bringing all three campuses together is like a question as old as time. How do we get all of the campuses together? The best way that I found to do that in Black History Month right now is to just have Paul Wilson, for example, the retired Met police officer, that 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 what would you call it, a talk, that talk will be taking place live and will be live streamed, so I guess people will be able to share in that experience and ask their questions and everything at the same time. So I guess it's a universal Greenwich experience in that way. But yeah, uh, besides that, there isn't really anything, because I do understand that it's not always going to be easy for people from all campuses to go to another campus. But yeah, that is my way of making sure people have sort of a more together experience, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much for answering the questions.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is about Global Village, and the question is, what were you thinking of doing for this across the three campuses?
For the campuses, sorry, can you
Yeah.
repeat the question?
What were you thinking of doing for this across the three campuses
Oh, do you mean for Black History Month?
in Global Village? Yeah.
Global Greenwich. Okay, so Global Greenwich doesn't actually fall under my remit. It's Jabed. It falls under Jabed's remit, and we're just sort of, I guess, updated and help him along where we could. So that's not really if we're speaking about, I'm not sure if I understand you correctly. Are you speaking with regards to Black History Month and how that we're going to work with Global Greenwich, or do you mean just in general? What am I doing for Global Greenwich?
Not just in Global Greenwich.
In general.
So it's about Global Village, your campaign, Aatika.
Oh, Global Village. Oh, sorry.
Too many similar names, I think. Thank you.
Similar names. For Global Village, so far, we haven't planned anything just yet, or have had any formal meetings about it. Jabed and I, because this is something that he's also really interested in. We've discussed it loosely, casually, but we haven't actually started planning it in a formal capacity, and that's because it's something that we're planning to have in term 2. And because so many things right now take precedent, so Black History Month, it's the start of the academic year, so we have our COVID conscious campaign. We're also trying to push out Global Greenwich, so that hasn't been something that we've really given much attention to as of now. But if we're talking about ideas, I have tons of ideas for Global Greenwich. I'm really excited about it. So I grew up in the UAE, which was a melting pot, and global villages were something that was really common. Usually what we would have are kiosks for different countries or different cultures. There would be dances, there would be food. It would just be really exciting. Students would be encouraged to wear clothes from their national dress. So yeah, there are definitely ideas there, but as far as the formal planning, that hasn't started yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. So I have a couple of questions. My first question is on your Know Your Rights campaign.
Yeah.
And just how that was going, and how it was progressing.
Okay, so with regards to the Know Your Rights campaign, this is something that I found Zoe was also really keen to work on. So we have been putting time in the diaries to discuss what the campaign progressing would look like. unfortunately, so if you know, in the scrutiny panel report, it said that we were going to be meeting on the day of the report submission, which was the 28th of September, because something related to Black History Month came in the way, something that needed to be dealt with more urgently. That didn't end up happening. But apart from that, we've had a few discussions with members of the rep team. So Sophie, who is head of Student Voice, we've spoken to her a bit about that, what that would look like. And the first thing that we said that we want to work on, Zoe and I, is sort of breaking down policy. So I think policy is one of those things that, you know, students don't even want to approach because it just seems very jargony and very intimidating. So one thing that we want to work on first and foremost is sort of like a policy reader. So that's what we've decided is going to be the first step. But because other things have taken precedent, we haven't been able to actually sit down and be like, all right, so we're going to start reading the policy and breaking it down together and making it simpler. Of course, the first, you know, the first step in that process was supposed to be on September the 28th, but that didn't end up happening. So we're trying to find time in our diaries for some date very soon, because even though Black History Month is taking a large portion of my energies right now, I do understand that this is a very important campaign, and it's not something that, you know, is relative to a particular time. It's more something that I want to continue throughout the year.
Perfect, thank you. And for my second question, in your student mandated work, you spoke about working with the Union of Jewish Students.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear about, you know, any updates you had on that, or how's it going?
Okay, so with regards to that, it's actually been going very well. The Union of Jewish Students, I was liaising with two of their representatives, and we decided that we would kind of create, I guess, almost like, what would you call it, like a call out post or an ad, asking Jewish students to take the initiative to, you know, start up the society. UJS kind of made up, so I asked them, you know, write something, or not necessarily to create a post, but write a piece that we can use in that advert, in that, you know, calling out post to you know, encourage students. And also, because it's coming from the Union of Jewish Students, students might feel more encouraged to take it up. So they very kindly put together a little graphic for me. I sent it over to the communications team, asking them to put it out in our social media platforms. This was late September. I actually checked in on it this morning. I asked the comms team what the update was on that front, and they were just like, probably just slipped through the emails or whatever, but they said probably it will be up by tomorrow, now that it was brought to their attention. But yeah, so hopefully it will be up by tomorrow, and on all the, you know, social media platforms.
Perfect, thank you. I look forward to seeing it, and thank you for answering my questions.
Brilliant, thank you for asking them.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're making great progress. Going on to the last planned question, before we open up the floor to any other burning questions. So this question is about the changes at Medway, as you are our Medway rep, our Medway officer, our Medway mandate. And I wanted to find out a bit more about what you've put in your reactionary work about the first Medway Partnership Board meeting holding, and then the fortnightly, I can say that word, fortnightly meetings taking place thus far. So I want you to share about what happened, how it was relevant, and where do you see this going forward, especially where the students are concerned.
Okay, so we had our first Medway partnership meeting last month. as mentioned in the report, and we had reps from the 3 involved SUs, so Canterbury, Christchurch, Kent, and GSU. And it was chaired by an external chair. And basically, what we did in that meeting was, now that the partnership has it's a bit different now. So it's being the GSU is the what would you call managing member, or leading, managing member in that partnership. A lot of changes have gone on. Obviously, Greenwich students at Medway are now represented by GSU. So in that meeting, we were discussing what that was going to look like, and we drafted we drafted and edited a Medway partnership agreement. So I would say the big thing that we emerged from in that meeting was bringing Canterbury Christchurch into the room a lot more, because traditionally they weren't as involved as Kent Union and Greenwich Students Union. And so yeah, just bringing them a lot more into the room, made a lot of changes to the first draft of the agreement, so that they can be, a lot more present in the room, have more of a say where the decisions are being made. And as far as myself and Lupe, who is Kent Union's Medway representative, just bringing Beth into the fortnightly meetings that we usually have, just discussing, events in Medway, how we're going to, try and get all of our unions to work together to, to have this event or this forum or whatever. So yeah, I would say those are that is the biggest win, bringing Canterbury Christchurch into the room a lot more, and also establishing that we're all sort of on the same page as far as officers across all 3 unions, in that we want to make sure that there is a parity of offer in between the other campuses in Medway. We all decided that we all agree on the fact that we don't want Medway to sort of be seen as a second choice. And yeah, that's basically what our heads are at the same place with regards to that. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. So that Medway partnership agreement, is that going to be in the public domain or only for certain eyes?
To be very frank with you, I'm not actually sure. The final draft actually went out for signing yesterday. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be in the public domain. I can check that out for you and get back to you. But I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer on that. I'm not sure.
That's all right. It's a bit of a curveball question. Okay, so still staying with Medway. Of course, you've mentioned. We'll get back to that in just a moment. Okay, so something that we noticed, especially in Zoe's report, is the amount of overlap that is between all of your different campaigns. So what's actually going on there? Because at the moment, okay, it's just October so far, so there's still some time to go, but what are we doing to see that you guys are actually working together on these things, as opposed to sort of like running individual campaigns? Like, for example, we were speaking to Jana just earlier about his cultural awareness campaign, and the conversation that he had with you. So how do we see cohesion and not? I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, no, that's a really good question. So with regards to the overlap within our campaigns, I do think there is absolutely a lot of overlap. I think, so like you said, besides the whole cultural awareness and my, wanting to host Global Village, and my wanting to have sort of like a well-being rethink, and Jabed wanting to run some sort of well-being campaign. I think they are, with regards to cultural awareness and Global Village, I do think they're quite different. So when I say Global Village, it's something that's over the period of a week, limited time. when Jabed speaks about cultural awareness, unless he's told you something differently, what I understand is, you know, culturally competent well-being, just, you know, having staff be better aware of, you know, be more culturally sensitive, things like that. Right now, as far as our campaigns, we haven't none of our campaigns have come up, so that none of those campaigns in which there's overlap have come up so that we can have that discussion, which is kind of like, all right, so how are we doing this? But what we did discuss and agree upon as a team is that we won't be embargoing certain areas of work. A lot of us have a lot of things that we're passionate about, and like the other officers are passionate about. So we agreed that it was going to be a collaborative space. I think the closest thing I can name in terms of having similar campaigns is, you know, Zoe, even though it's not in her main manifesto, you know, campaign points, she was really keen to work on student rights. She was working on an activist hub last year, and she's, you know, we saw similarities between that and my Know Your Student Rights campaign. And so we, you know, we've just been putting in time discussing with each other what that would look like. Yeah, that's the closest thing I can name to that.
Okay, cool. I was actually thinking about Zoe as an example because there are a few nexus points with, for example, Greenwich, Shag Week, and then also the BAME attainment gap, and then just different little nexus points.
A lot of things need to be painful.
It's true. You're very correct about that. I think something that would be really, really great is in those big, obvious combining points, it'd be really, really great to see cohesion, to see that unified front. It would be very wonderful to see. Okay, so I'll open up to everyone else if there are any other burning questions that they have. Sophie, brilliant. Go ahead.
Hi, so just in your report, you spoke about the BH365 grant.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could go more into detail about what exactly is and why you ended up not applying for it.
Yeah, so the Black History 365 grant is a grant from the Borough of Greenwich, and what it is basically is you know, when you apply, you're given a certain amount of money to promote Black history, to celebrate Black history, not just over the month of October, but really from the beginning of October throughout the year, you know, because 365. And the whole point of the grant is that you promote and celebrate Black history in ways that would bring traffic to the Borough of Greenwich, and in ways that would I guess platform the Borough of Greenwich, I guess. And I did, so I began the process of applying for the grant, but then when I was nearing deadline day, I found out that there were actually more evidences in terms of finances and stuff that needed to be collected. And funnily enough, this is the issue that officers last year went through. So yeah, but I guess the good thing is that I kind of went into applying for, because I know from people that they tend to they prefer to give the grant to smaller businesses, not necessarily large charities like SUs or universities. So I didn't have every faith that it would be accepted, but I thought I'd apply anyways. And I thought, even though there might be a lesser chance of this being accepted, it's a good experience, you know, to apply for a grant. Big girl things. So yeah, I thought I'd apply for it, but at the end of the day, it didn't end up going through because not all of the paperwork was there, and there was just too little time to acquire everything that was necessary.
Okay, thank you. And just as a follow-up question to that, how much time did you end up spending on that, collating all the data and the application itself?
Okay, so the application itself, you know, when it came to actually putting, so in the application, what they wanted to see was evidence that you were going to engage businesses in the Borough of Greenwich, businesses, groups, things like that in the Borough of Greenwich, evidence that this was going to be good for the Borough of Greenwich and that was going to bring people from the outside. I started compiling the evidences and actually writing it down and, you know, giving myself time to finesse it. I did that over the period of 2 weeks. But before that, I started the whole brainstorming process of, all right, so I want to get the Borough of Greenwich involved. So I got in contact with a group called Black Girls Do Bike, who encourage Black women to cycle because, you know, cycling Black women, apparently it's not very common. So I contacted them so that we can maybe arrange a ride along in Greenwich Park. So, you know, that way it would be something that, you know, involves the borough. So that brainstorming process started before, but the actual process of compiling everything was done over the period of 2 weeks. But it was at a much later stage that I found out that the evidence that I needed to compile in terms of finances was actually much more detailed than I initially thought. And I found this out from speaking to one of the previous officers who was applying for the Black History 365 grant. And they were like, yeah, well, actually, you know, all the ideas and everything are nice, but there's more that they need in terms of proof. So then I understood. I was like, all right, so this won't be the year for it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I do have another question, but I don't know if we have time for it. But I just wanted to ask quickly, you said in your report about encouraging societies to host their own Black History Month events, and you said you haven't heard back a lot. I was going to ask how this was going and if you've had like a better response to it.
So since then, not too much. Politics Society expressed interest in doing something, although they're still wondering, you know, what that might look like. I'm waiting on Medway groups to get back to me. So I do understand that their first point of contact will be Kat Dennis, who works at Medway. So even though I did contact them personally, I understand they might contact her. You know, when they're like, okay, we want to get involved, they might contact her first. So I will be following up with her on that. But besides that, I haven't gotten much response. As far as ACS, they expressed interest, but when I was chasing them up, being like, you know, so do you want to do something? Last year you did a fashion show, it was really great. Do you want to get involved? They're like, yeah, that'll be great, but nothing in terms of actual doing. Dance Society has gotten in touch with me about possibly doing like a choreography to Afrobeats or soca, which they did a few years ago. So that's something that they're thinking about. But yeah, not as much society involvement as I would have liked. But yeah, I think even though the month has started, I am going to still be contacting societies, because working in Politics Society before, I do know that sometimes societies might be like, yeah, come on, let's do this next week, you know, like, you know, very, very quickly prepare for these sorts of things. So I'm still going to be contacting societies because I do think it's important that student groups are involved in this.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I know we're pushed for time, but Henry, can I ask one more question, please?
I think because it's the president, of course, you can ask one more question.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so this doesn't really fall into your main campaign activities, but looking at your remits and just the things that you're working on this year in general. I wanted to find out, I suppose, two things. So again, looking at Faculty of Engineering Science and Medway and all these lovely things, because you made a striking statement about making sure that Medway students don't feel like a second option. So what does that actually look like in practical terms? What would you do to not make them feel like they're a second option?
Okay, so when I say I don't want Medway to feel like a second option, I mean more as in Medway the space. So you would see Medway students, Avery Hill students coming to Greenwich, going to Avery Hill, but not necessarily going to Medway. And so this was something that I discussed with Beth and Lupe, and we discussed maybe organize, because I know now, having spoken to transport, that it's not going to be an easy thing to get later buses, especially now with the fuel shortage. Nobody knows what's going on. But what we decided was that whenever there are big events, big collaboration events between Kent Union and GSU, or Kent Union, GSU, and Canterbury Christchurch Union, that we were going to organise late shuttle buses for those particular events, just to give students from Avery Hill and Greenwich incentive to go to Medway, because I think one of the biggest barriers is transportation. But if that's organised, I'm hoping that we would definitely see a lot more uptake for Medway events. Another way that I'm keen to create this is through a parity of offer. If something's going to be available on this campus, it will be available on that campus. And that's what I'm doing with the Know Your Black Britain display series. So I decided to make it a traveling series. So 1 week in Greenwich, 1 week in Avery Hill, 1 week in Medway. And yeah, I feel like there are a lot of ways to ensure that there is a parity of offer, and that Medway doesn't seem like a second choice. And I think the way that we do that is, whenever we're doing an event, whenever we're running a campaign, we need to be like, all right, how are people in Medway going to experience this or benefit from this? And I think that's how it's best done.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be following you up on that throughout the year. But yes, we've come very much to and over our appointed time.